What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to an episode of the Steelers Breakdown Podcast. Nick Farabaugh here with you guys as always. And as you know, day before the game, we do preview with someone from the other side. And I got my guy here, known as Bengal Sons on Twitter. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Guys, if you want Bengals work and you want to be informed about the Bengals, in my opinion, the best film analyst there is in the Bengals land. So I wanted to have him on here and let's kind of start and talk about this team because it's a fascinating offense right now, right? With Flacco now coming in, a lot of anticipation throws, it looked like in the second half, started to feel himself a little bit. But where do you think this offense is right now with Flacco heading into his second game?
Yeah. Um, well, it looks a heck of a lot better than Jake Browning because there was no anticipation on that. That was a see the guy open and I'll throw it. And I think he also had Madden brain a little bit where he's just like, I'm just going to watch this guy and hope he gets open on the
Yep.
first read. And if he's not there, oh boy, we got a disaster. Flacco, veteran. There is some anticipatory stuff on the outside, some good throws on out routes and a curl route. And I think he can operate the quick game well. So I think those are the two things he's going to do well. The only issue, well, the obvious issue that comes with that, and I think Bengals Steelers because of this, because they've used that with Joe Burrow a lot of quick game. When the ball's coming out in 2.1, 2.2 seconds, like it was with Flacco in the second half of that game when the ball was moving, defensive linemen stop rushing and they start getting their hands up. And I could think of a game, I think it was one game that TJ Watt had two interceptions just catching the ball at the line, which is ridiculous. But if the Bengals keep trying to go with the quick game, you could see it again. So that's the main crux of the offense is Joe Flacco starting to trust his wide receivers more. Good reason. He just started throwing go balls to Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase made good on them, like anybody should do playing quarterback for this team, and started trusting that T. Higgins would be open when he's going to break. And actually started trusting things too much because he's throwing Andre Yosivas the ball on the break, and he dropped three of them. But the run game's a disaster. If it goes well, like that's more of an indictment of the Steelers defense. I don't expect it to go well. At best, it'll be maybe competent. It'll look like an NFL team. So that's really all you're looking for there is just I think before the last couple of weeks, their high on the season was like 52 yards, and now it's up a little bit higher, but it looks like a disaster. Samaje Perine a little bit better than Chase Brown so far, just because he can play a little more physical, fall forward, and that'll get you an extra couple of yards. But otherwise, the blocking it's something else. You guys will see.
So from what I saw, I think the Bengals are the only team in football without a 15 plus yard run. That's
Yeah,
crazy to me. That's crazy to me. Steelers defense has been much better against the run in really the last three games. So I think that they fixed that kind of for themselves, which has been nice. You talk about quick game. That has been a weakness for the Steelers all year. Carson Wentz diced him up, and then for some reason they went away from it. And then they went back to it, and he's third diced him up again. Dylan Gabriel couldn't do anything last week because he was just in hell, to say the least. And Drake May really moved the ball down the field on quick game too on them. But this is kind of interesting to me because Flacco obviously was a guy that came in last year for the Colts. Actually, Richardson got hurt, and then he comes in, he dices up the Steelers for about two quarters. They adjust finally, slow him down in the fourth. Talk to me just a kind of about how Zach Taylor. Are you noticing anything different in what Zach Taylor's doing, kind of with Flacco versus Browning, even though it's only been one game? And if so, how that kind of fits into this Steelers defense? I mean, listen, Zach Taylor knows Mike Tomlin's defense. They run a bunch of single high. This year, though, the blitz rate is way up. They are sending the heat on teams this year. It doesn't matter really what you do.
that sure sounds great if they had Joe Burrow, but because
Yeah,
I
right.
feel I feel good about him against the blitz. Um, Yeah, so with Browning in the first half of the Flacco game, he tried to hide the quarterback a little bit. He tries to lean on that run game, and it stinks. Like it. That's why the scripted plays. If you ever see a chart, the scripted plays, he's one of the bottom two, and the other one happens to be Brian Callahan, the guy from his coaching tree. In the scripted plays, just the worst in the league. And I'm not it might go better against the Steelers because he does know the defense at least. He knows the structure. He knows what they like to do. He knows how they like to play the Bengals offense too. So maybe they can go a little bit better in this. And maybe Flacco helps him. Maybe he realizes, hey, you don't really have to treat Flacco like a make a wish quarterback like he thought he did with Jake Browning. It might have rightfully been doing that to Jake Browning based off of how it was going. So I think we will see on how they attack the Steelers defense. I wouldn't be that surprised just because 6 straight weeks of, I think the best they've done with either Flacco or Browning has been 3 points in the first half. So yeah, pretty low. then they adjust. And for Browning, a lot of it was garbage time, but the Bengals defense actually played a little bit against Green Bay, and it was a 1-2. It was a one-score game at one point, 6 point game in the fourth quarter. So it wasn't all garbage time. But yeah, I don't have high hopes for the scripted offense, the early offense. I think if I had to guess, they're going to try to do some run stuff. They're going to try to make it easy on Flacco. And like that makes sense on paper. It's just there's another part of that paper where you're looking at the offensive linemen and how they've done and how this running game has looked, and you see why it's not working. The tight ends and wide receivers are not, they're also not blockers. They're not doing a good job of that. Gesicki's out, but you still have Tanner Hudson's not a blocker. Noah Fant, guy in space sometimes. Drew Sample having his worst career year. He is the blocker of the group, but he doesn't do a great job of it when he's in line. It's not like they don't have a Darnell Washington on this team. Nice to have that extra offensive tackle at times. So I don't have high hopes for it. I could see them if he does just rely on Joe Flacco quick game and maybe a little bit of stuff sprinkled in here and there just to keep the defense honest. I could see it working early on in this game, and then the Steelers are the team that adjusts. But based off the 6 weeks of evidence going into this year, I'm kind of expecting a slow start offensively.
That is what the Steelers want, because then you play their game of ball control offense, and the Steelers in the second half. The Steelers have had a really fun offensive kind of variation. They open up real quick, then they stall out generally for the second quarter, and then they make second half adjustments and actually are able to ball control. And if you play into that game, the Steelers are just able to really kind of pin their ears back in the pass rush, and things can get ugly. That's what happened with Dylan Gabriel last week. The Steelers got out early, and it just never materialized. So, which is why I'm going to ask you now. You talked about that offensive line. Everybody knows Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are going to be issues, even though the Steelers literally went out and got Darius Slade, Jalen Ramsey to complement with Joey Porter Jr. to try and handle those two guys. But this offensive line has been the crux of this team's kind of offense. It's been the only thing holding them back offensively, it feels like. It's been Burrow and those two guys. But this offensive line just hasn't worked. What is going on with the offensive line? It looks like Amarius Mims is playing well. I know he's banged up, but it seems like he'll be okay. Orlando Brown is kind of not playing that well. And then the interior is an entirely separate thing. So what's going on with this offensive line, and how have they handled blitzes? Because I know the Steelers are going to send heat.
Yeah, they've had miscommunications and mental errors on blitzes, so you could see that again. Just last week, one of the worst botch protections I've seen, where nobody blocks the defensive tackle in the three technique. They're picking up the linebacker from depth. Sure, that's not the issue. You have to block the guys up front first. So and blame who you want, but that's clearly an issue. Um, Samaje Perine is a good pass protector for the blitzes, though. So I think that's the one thing is if they do get everybody in the right place, he can stonewall some linebackers. Um, that could be a fun meeting in the hole of Samaje Perine, Pat Queen, or anybody else they're bringing. I know they brought Ramsey a couple times last week. So I the offensive line in general, though, Orlando Brown, he's like a slightly lesser version of Orlando Brown. I feel like he's faced the murderer's row. I feel a little bad for him. Myles Garrett, Josh Hines Allen, Jonathan Grenard, Aiden Hutchinson didn't really draw the Micah Parsons matchup, but he also played pretty well except for one sack where he gave it to Lucas Van Ness. I I give him a little bit of slack, but that's also the job, right? Like your job as an offensive tackle stinks. You have to block like these freaks every single play. I know TJ Watt is a right side guy and he's facing Amarius Mims. Amarius Mims played really well last week, but the week before that might have been his worst game as a pro against Jonathan Cooper and Nick Benito of the Broncos. I think guys with that, it was an away game and they were on the silent count and they don't vary their silent count too much. So they were getting a really good beat on it. I bet if you looked into the get off numbers, that would be one of their best games. They were crushing Mims and Brown by flying off the ball and knowing the snap count. Interior disaster. Dylan Fairchild has some promise, and then he got hurt and played a little poorly, and then he missed the week. Uh, could make sense that he played poorly because he was injured. Dalton Reisner took over, and he played well against Green Bay, but I have trepidation there because the Green Bay interior defensive line in that game didn't even include Devontae Wyatt. So he was blocking Carl Brooks and Warren Brinson. I think I'm a little more worried about a Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Derek Harmon, whatever else that the Steelers are bringing at him. Yeah, all those guys. I think that's a little bit more concerning than those two. On the other side, Jalen Rivers kind of struggled with Warren Brinson and Carl Brooks. So I'm really worried about that one. He's a rookie. He's a fifth round rookie. He's had some okay games here and there, but last week, not one of them. He also, chicken and egg, you could decide which is why. Micah Parsons singled him out as the weak link of the team. And he, every third and long, found a way to match up with him one on one. And Ted Karras, to me, has lost a step, and he just doesn't look as good as he has in the past. And to be fair, in the past, I'm talking about like a league average competent center, and now he's below league average. You're not, maybe a replacement level center guy that maybe you should bring in a young guy for at this point, other than I guess the calls at the line, which were more important with Jake Browning. With Joe Flacco, he should be able to adjust some of those and help out. So we'll see, I think is what I'm looking at, but it's probably bad.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Orlando Brown's murderers row. It doesn't get much easier with Highsmith and Herbig.
No, and I really like Highsmith and Herbig, and as players, like I like watching them. I think when Highsmith got his contract, a lot of people were like, "What? He's
Player.
not even whatever." I was like, "Dude, that's a good player. That's a good pass rusher." I don't know if it's just like my Bengals brain of watching him kill everybody that's been left tackle, but I remember it was early on. He did a ghost move the same time as T.J. Watt. I was like, "They look the same. What's going on here?"
Yeah, and Herbig's having an awesome year. This is kind of his star-making year, if you will. So the Steelers' front, and Harmon has come in and instantly looked great. So this Steelers' front is cooking right now with fish grease and more. So I'm interested to see this matchup. It's really going to be, I think, Flacco's mind versus the Blitzes, and we'll see who can win that battle. And you mentioned getting their hands up. Cam Hayward's really good at that. Harmon got one up in Ireland and forced a pick to Deshaun Elliott. Like, we'll see it. It's going to be a fun cat and mouse game. But let's go to the other side of the ball. I feel like everyone looks at the Bengals defense and thinks of last year. But it seems like even though it hasn't been perfect, it's at least been a little bit better. I at least watched the tape, and it's not like last year I was like, this is a disaster. Everything's wrong. I know they are benching Logan Wilson, and Barrett Carter's now the starter. First of all, let's just start there. What is going on with the linebacker position? Logan Wilson not playing for the Bengals seems a little weird to me because I've always been a fan of Logan Wilson, to be quite honest with you.
It is weird. They drafted two linebackers and I want to play them, I guess. Like I've tried going back and seeing the moment he got benched. And really it was like the first play. He was just the third linebacker for base downs, and then he just wasn't even in the game in the second half. He's been a pro about it, but he's been the best linebacker on the team. The rookies have been bad. And Barrett Carter, terrible last week. Same with Demetrius Knight. They were both very bad last week. And honestly, a big reason, I mean, Matt LaFleur had the target on them, but a big reason that defense started giving up some points in that second half, too. Um, I I'm surprised by the Logan Wilson thing. It makes me think like, and this would be shocking for the Bengals, who have made what 3-4 player trades in the past 25 years. That feels like you're just getting him ready to ship him off. I don't know, but I've also looked into the contract, and it's not like they saved that much money from doing this because they gave him that extension that runs through, I think not next year, but the year after. It's a little confusing because I think Logan Wilson lost a step a little bit. He's not the most athletic guy anymore. He's still smart. He still gets himself in the right place. He's at worst to me, he's an average linebacker. And on his good days, he's a very good linebacker. I'm surprised by it, but and Oren Burks too. They don't play him, but anytime he comes in there, he might miss a tackle, but dang, he plays everything exactly how you'd expect it. Better or worse, he doesn't do more or less than his job. He's always doing exactly what he's supposed to.
It's interesting because every time I think about the Bengals defense, the one thing I would always count on outside of Trey Hendrickson was Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson. And now it feels like a really big question mark where, I mean, if I'm Arthur Smith, I'm looking at the Steelers tight end room. Pat Frymuth has darted them in the past. Now they have John Smith. Washington's involved. And more importantly, who I'm looking at, Jalen Warren, I think this is a good Jalen Warren matchup. But let's talk about that front. So right now, as we're recording this, I don't know if Trey Hendrickson's going to play in this game. He hasn't practiced the last 2 days. We'll see. But let's assume he is. and kind of what this does. So Shamar Stewart's back this week. That's I know a good thing for them. That he's looked pretty good in my opinion in the 2 games I've seen of him. What about this Bengals front do you like? And specifically, how does Hendrickson kind of open things up for guys like Stewart, Osai seemingly having a decent year at least, and then what's kind of going on in the interior with guys like B.J. Hill and them guys?
Yeah, on the outside, you hope Trey Hendrickson's there because all across the defensive line, that's the only guy you can consistently count on to get pressure, at least by himself. Otherwise, you're hoping stunts, blitzes, whatever, get home. Um, and he's obviously been very good against the Steelers. No more Dan Moore matchup where he had three and a
Yeah.
half sacks in the last game of the year. It was nuts. Just thought of that whenever the Titans signed him. I was like, hope I get to see that again. Um, but yeah, I Shamar's interesting because I thought he was pretty good week one. Week two, a little more rocky, but he's a rookie, so it's probably not going to be a consistent season for him. He's going to bring a lot of power, and it'll be up to the Steelers whether they can handle that. And I did see, I think it was Trey Essex was saying like he's a little more worried about Broderick Jones against power, which in your head is kind of like what, he's big, but also he's kind of playing high, but he's trying to sell out to stop the speed. When you have speed and power like you have with Trey Hendrickson and then also with Shamar Stewart, it's something that could give some guys some issues. Joseph Osai's been solid. I think he doesn't do a ton that makes well, this is a breakout year for Joseph Osai, but I think he does his job for the most part. He does a solid job of it. On the interior, TJ Slayton has been their second best pass rusher as a nose tackle, but also he's going against Zach Frazier this week. A little more water on that fire. And it's also kind of an indictment on the rest of the defensive line too. Your nose tackle should not be your second best pass rusher. But he's been pretty good. I think the PFF grades have been bad, but I don't really agree with them. I never really like what they've done with nose tackles because you'll make your play, you'll make the running back bounce, and then you miss the tackle while engaged with a center, and they'll give you a minus grade for that. It's like, well, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And BJ Hill, fine. He's BJ Hill. He's solid. He's solid there. Chris Jenkins would be the other guy, I guess, to think about. He's been an okay run defender. There's nothing there as a pass rusher still after in his second season, and it looks like that could just be what it is. And it kind of goes into Miles Murphy. Not much is going on there. He's got a couple. I think he has maybe 2 sacks on the year. It doesn't look great when it's happening. So it seems like that just kind of is what it is. Super fast off the ball, but just has not put pass rushing together. And in the run game, he can get doubled. Same with Osai and Henry. All these ends, they can kind of get doubled and moved on these tight ends. So that's a worry of mine going into the game of seeing Darnell Washington and whether it's another tight end like Fryermuth or an offensive tackle, just getting them in position to get the end reduced and trying to double him and run the ball there.
Yeah, the Steelers jumbo package that has been their secret weapon the last 2 weeks, and they have been extremely good out of it. I mean, success rate's up near 70%, averaging almost 6 yards a carry, perfect 11-11 passing game. I mean, they popped an explosive on the first play of the game against the Browns out of that. That's something I just going to expect to see every week at this point until someone can stop it. I'm interested in the run D. So the stats don't really paint a good picture, but I actually thought sometimes when I watched the film, like I thought Slayton, you mentioned him. I think he does good work in the run game. I know he's facing Frazier, but still, I respect Slayton's kind of ability. Mike Tomlin, it was kind of interesting, when he does his little recap of teams, he actually mentions Slayton and kind of his ability to stop the run. But where do you see this run defense kind of at right now? And the Steelers' run game has kind of opened up and started to cook a little bit with Warren and Gainwell over the last 2 weeks. So where do you feel about the Bengals' run defense and where it's going?
I think they're okay up the middle, and that could be a TJ Slayton thing. And then on the edges, there's been big issues all year, and some of that is the linebackers, some of it's the corners. I mean, I think DJ Turner's having a heck of a year in coverage, but that guy is still 175 pounds, so he's not a great run defender. And Cam Taylor Britt is a solid run defender. He's bigger. He's a third corner now. He's benched because of his play. X Hill will have some highlight real plays in the run game, and then there are just times where he's getting blocked by a slot receiver and not coming off the ball. It was interesting in the Denver game. He stonewalls a guard on the goal line run, And then later in the game, like some wide receivers block him, he's not coming off the block. I'm like, what is going on, dude? Like, take him on the same way. Like, they'll just play down to the competition here. So I think the run game, I'd be mostly concerned about the stuff on the outside. If it happens inside, I there's solid run defenders up there. I think Slayton, Jenkins, and BJ Hill are all solid run defenders. So it would just be an issue of, well, the Steelers also got some solid guys on that interior offensive line. They won the battle. But if I'm guessing how this goes, they will have more success running to the exterior.
It's what happened in the Vikings game. They popped them on the perimeter and game almost at 100 yards. It was all jumbo package stuff. So I'm interested to see how that goes. So talk to me a little bit about Al Golden's defense, coverage wise. It's different than Anarumo. There's some different stuff there that he does. And then talk to me about the secondary. As you mentioned, feels like DJ Turner's kind of having his game, right? This feels like his breakout year. He's played really well. But how's the rest of the secondary performing? You know, you have Geno Stone back there. You have it's a pretty constant secondary. Like we know these names, so we've seen them around.
Yeah, he's been spinning the Rolodex a little bit in coverage. At Notre Dame, obviously, he was insanely high on cover one. He just ran man free everywhere. You can't do that in the NFL. The wide receiver athletes are too crazy. So he still runs it on third downs in some packages, but it seems like more. I'm guessing in this game he'll want to lean a little bit into cover three, like he did against the Jaguars and the Lions, but he also has mixed in a lot of split field, quarter, half zone coverage once in a while. And it probably does happen this week because of Rodgers at quarterback. He'll play some two-man stuff. He'll play some stuff where if the quarterback can scramble, he can scramble great, but we're going to do everything, devote a lot of resources to stopping the pass. When it comes to the secondary and how they've played, I think Dax Hill has been solid. He's been a pretty good player. Cam Taylor-Britt has been terrible. Geno Stone's been better this year than last year. I think Geno Stone's been pretty solid this year too. Jordan Battle, complete roller coaster. He had 2 picks in 2 weeks and played really well. And then lately, it's been all the opposite, very bad. He'll have more missed tackles than he does anything else. So it depends on what game you get out of Jordan Battle. But I think DJ Turner is having a career year so far. When you look at a lot of statistics, sixth in EPA allowed per target. He's up there in their PFF grade or whatever. He's up there in yards per target, completion percentage, everything you want to look for. And my one concern is styles make fights. He's having a great year. He's 170 pounds at 5'11, and DK Metcalf is 6 foot forward, 230 pounds or something. Ginormous dude. So if he can hold up in that fight, awesome. But he just came off a career game too. 5 passes defended, 4 broken up, only gave up 2 catches on 8 targets for like 8 yards. So he's having a good year. And one of those pass breakups did end up being an interception too. So I look for DJ Turner to play well. I do worry about that matchup with DK Metcalf, but they're going to have to figure out something because DK Metcalf is going to have a size advantage, especially if the Steelers go jumbo and keep Cam Taylor-Britt off the field. Like Cam Taylor-Britt's their one guy with size that can maybe match with him, and he played well against him a couple years ago in Seattle, but he's their third corner. Like he's not on base down. So if the Steelers keep the Bengals defense in a base defense with an extra offensive lineman and Darnell Washington or Darnell and an extra tight end, whatever they're doing to force that from the Bengals, they're probably not going to have Cam Taylor-Britt on the field, so you have to figure out a way to stop DK Metcalf. Yeah, I think it's not terrible coverage wise, but when it does happen, it feels like those usual suspects, like yeah, Cam Taylor-Britt and Jordan Battle, and they're really struggling right now in coverage.
It's interesting because the Vikings were in a very similar predicament size wise, and they chose even against the nickel. I mean, even against the jumbo stuff, they stayed in nickel sometimes, and instead of opting to allow the explosive passes, they still did because they busted a cover two, and DK took an 81 yarder off a slant. But they opted and said, you know what, we'll let you slow drip it and run the ball instead, and maybe that death by a thousand cuts, hoping Rodgers messes up. Maybe that's the way you go. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting dichotomy there. So I always ask people this from the other side: if there's kind of a formula you see for the Bengals to win this football game, because Steelers fans right now I know are just terrified of this game. Flacco won 2 Thursday night road games in the division. Mike Tomlin's 0-6. in these games. He's 2-8 on the road, true, in Thursday night games. Hasn't won a road Thursday night game since 2016. Like, there's all these stats that are like, boom, boom, boom. This is going to be the Steelers' loss when they should be 5-1. You feel like, and should be putting a device, kind of an iron grip on this division lead. But what's the formula for you for a Bengals win here on this Thursday?
To me, clear underdogs. So the formula is one, Zach Taylor is aggressive as a coach, and you win those coin flips. He goes for it on 4th and 2 from the 40 instead of kicking the ball, and you end up with a touchdown. Or just 4th and goal from like the 3 yard line, you get a touchdown out of it instead of a field goal. Like, you need to score here, because on the other side, I think what you're hoping for on the defensive side is a little bit of Thursday night sloppiness, a little bit of this is a short week and maybe a fumble. The Bengals defense has been good at creating interceptions and some turnovers. So I think that plays into it. I think of quick game, slow killing, and keeping the ball too. Limit the number of drives in a game. When you're the underdog, you want as little drives as possible. You want to take a long drive all the way to the end zone. They maybe take something back, but now one mistake is huge. And if you can make the Steelers be the team to make that mistake, because it's Thursday night football, they're on the road, they haven't practiced much this week, then you can take good advantage of that. I am surprised you guys are terrified of this matchup. If I was power ranking the Bengals in the NFL, it might start with a 3. So this doesn't feel like a game that they should really win, but it is there. Like, you get maybe an explosive play from Chase Brown for the first time all year, a screen or something where it gets blocked up well, and the wide receivers block well because they've been hammering them on that all week. Or more likely, also, Jamar Chase just does Jamar Chase things and goes crazy, and T. Higgins is being a bully and draws only 3 defensive pass interferences down the field this time against Joey Porter instead of 4, but it's still a lot. You lean on the weapons, you create these situations where an underdog can win, you're aggressive when it matters. You maybe, instead of turnovers too, Al Golden has leaned a little bit more into the blitz. Can you blitz Rodgers and he doesn't escape? You get a sack on a 3rd down and can get a short field on a punt. I think you just need some stuff to go your way as the Bengals. And the thing they have going for them is they're at home on a Thursday night.
No, I think that's the formula. I think Flacco is mine, just trying to get it to Chase and Higgins, making a few plays. Maybe you can get Noah Fant out there in space, and he can stretch the field a little bit in the quick game. Like, there's a few things I can look at the Steelers should be worried about. You know, I'd kind of say only do 4-man stunts. The Steelers have had trouble with that. Blitzes generally have not gone well because the Steelers are one of the best yak teams in football. So Rodgers just knows where to get it out. And Warren and Metcalf and Jonnu and Gainwell and these other guys have been able to create plays. No Calvin Austin in this one, though. So I think the man-to-man stuff is probably more more viable this week than it usually is. But we'll see how this one goes. But there's a reason Steelers fans are terrified. It's because of the Thursday night divisional road game. That's literally the reason why. If this was on a Sunday, I think everyone would be like, that's good. It's more likely than that. But thanks for coming on, man. Tell them where they can follow you, read your stuff, watch you, all that great stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Bengals_Sans, SANS. You'll find pretty much everything I do there. For watching me, I don't have my own podcast anymore, so I just do all these guest spots. It's more fun for me. I don't have a consistent schedule. I just come on. But read, if you're not on Twitter, then go to SI Bengals Talk. It's Sports Illustrated Bengals affiliate. You'll find a weekly article there from me. I suggest the Twitter, though, because as a Steelers fan, and you could just unfollow me after the week, there's going to be a bunch of clips, and you could just not look at my words and just look at the clips and be like, "Ooh, look at what the Steelers player did." And there'll probably be bad clips on the Bengals offensive line, so you guys go, "Ooh, look at Nick Herbig," or look at Alex Highsmith. It's great. So yeah, that's where you can watch, find whatever.
Yeah, he does great Bengals work. Just to keep tabs on Bengals, Ravens, Browns, if you want to do that. I always recommend fans follow people that cover those teams. I think it makes you smarter as a fan. And more importantly, when draft season comes along, this man cooks. So make sure to check him out. Folks, you can follow me at Farabaugh FB on Twitter. You can subscribe, like, comment, subscribe on this YouTube channel. Make sure to read the stuff over at penlive.com/Steelers. Thanks for watching, everybody.